Today we're talking about the ReadChars and ReadBytes methods of the binary reader class. And you should notice that it says ReadChars plural and ReadBytes plural, because there actually is a ReadChar and ReadByte call that's singular, and it just reads in one character or one byte at a time. But with ReadChars and ReadBytes, you specify a number and it reads in that number of bytes, and then you need to use something like a for each to actually iterate through the collection of characters or bytes. And once again, we're using the track bar as we did in the previous video, but this time we have a practical application. We're using the track bar to scroll through the binary file. And the properties we use in the track bar are almost all the same as the ones we used in the previous video. There's value, maximum, tick style, tick frequency, cursor, large change, and small change. But now we're using a new property of visible, because when the application first runs, we want the track bar to be invisible. We don't want the user to be able to see it until he opens a file that we want to scroll through, and then it becomes visible. This prevents the user from doing something dumb like trying to manipulate the track bar before there's a file opened. And once again, the track bar event we're looking at is scroll, which is the main event of a track bar. We're also looking at the open file dialog in order to allow the user to select any file he wants, and we're using a number of read-only text boxes, once again so the user doesn't try and type something into the text boxes, which are really just displaying information. Well, this is a form we're using. This is the track bar that's used to scroll through the file. And when you press the open button, it creates an open file dialog that allows the user to select a file name, and then the file name is displayed in this text box, which is kind of hard to see because it's read-only, and the size of the file is displayed in this text box. And this long text box is used to display the sliding window of characters, which, depending on how big the file is, that window will get bigger and bigger. And in this case it's the bytes, and in this case it's the characters. The two of them are of course parallel to each other. So if we look at the event handler for the open button, we're basically displaying the open file dialog, and then if the user pressed OK, we're putting the file name into a local variable called str file name, and then putting that into the text box, and then we're opening file info on that file and getting the length of the file and putting that in a global variable actually of in file size, and then displaying that in a text box in hex format. The quotation mark X quotation mark on the to string means hex format. And then we're using that value to set the maximum value of the track bar. So actually we're using that value minus the window size that we got by dividing by 100. Because we basically want 100 ticks, and we want this to go up the number of ticks minus 1, so that we don't go further in the file than there's data to display, essentially. So the other information is pretty much covered in the previous video. We're doing the number of ticks as being the window size, and we're making a small change as being 1 tick, which is also the window size, and then a large change is the window size times 5. So the large change is when you click on either side of the track bar, and the small change is when you use the arrow keys to move 1 tick at a time. And the initial state of the track bar is invisible, or no, it's in, yeah, initially it is invisible because it's set in the the pane, and we make it visible when we press this button. So it becomes visible, and we give it the focus so the user will immediately start interacting with it. And then we open a binary file in the readopen stream, file.readopen, using the file name that the user input. Then in the scroll event handler for the trackbar, we essentially set a global variable called endCurPosition to what the value of the trackbar is, and then we set that into a read-only text box, once again in hex format, so this text box shows a position within the file. And then we clear both of the display text boxes and set the position within the file to the current position that we got by the calculation on the trackbar. And then we do a for each for the number of characters in the window size. We do a BRE.ReadBytes for that number of characters, which in the case of the file we're using will be 7 characters. And read that into a range variable called BWR2 and concatenate that with the display text box, which we previously cleared out. And we put a space in between them because these are just a series of hex numbers. That'd be hard to read without a space in between them. And then we essentially do exactly the same thing. We have to reset the BaseStream.Position to the current position that we got from the trackbar. And the reason we have to do that is each one of these reads automatically moves that position. So it would, in the case of the file we're talking about, it would be 7 characters too far if we didn't reset the BaseStream.Position at this point. And then we go through the same kind of for each loop, this time using the ReadChars with the window size of number of characters, and reading that into a range variable called CCurChar, and concatenating those together using a toString so that they look like characters. And in this case we use a toString with an X so they look like hex numbers. And this we just concatenate directly because characters look good all put together without spaces in between them. So if we compile and run this program and do an open on a file name, this is the same VLC hotkeys file that we looked at in the previous video. We're talking about trackbars. And we do an open on that. And you see the file name got put in this text box, and the size of 2E5, which is a hex number, got put in this text box. And all these ticks are calculated as being, 1/100th of this length, so that we have 100 ticks, we'll get to the end of the file. And if I use the arrow key to move through this, you see we're now 7 characters forward because we have a 7 character window, and all the characters are 2D because that's these dash characters or minus characters that I have at the top of the file. You see that goes on for quite a while. We'll finally get out of the 2Ds, and we have a D and an A, and the D and the A are carriage return and line feed, which is the window convention for doing a new line. And then we have a 54, which corresponds with a capital T, and a 68, which corresponds with a lowercase h. And we can click on the right of the scroll bar to jump forward 5 times as much, and we get another 7 character window at the 70 hex, and another 7 character window at 93 hex, which 74 stands for lowercase t, 6b stands for lowercase k, and so on. Of course, the most interesting way to use this program is to just hook onto the slide and drag it back and forth, and then you can actually see the window sliding back and forth as if you're moving through the file. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and learned a lot, and I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe.